I've always been told I'm not taking people's feelings into consideration enough. While we want to be considerate of people's feelings, people also do need to become more resilient. Figure your own stuff out. It's a you problem, not an everybody else problem. So figure it out and navigate through life. And man alive, when I say stuff like that, I get so much pushback. Oh, I'm so mean. I'm awful. There was a time in the past where being mean was not unethical. It was just being mean. But I think we've entered a time period where if you're not constantly and perpetually signaling compassion, you are put in an unethical camp.
Hey, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
Antonia, why does it seem like people, the world at large, the things I see online, couch thinking and thoughts as pure and responsible and emotions as unethical and manipulative and dirty? Do you have an answer for me? Because I'm really curious about this.
Well, my experience seems to be 180 degrees away from that. So I'm gonna need to know what you mean by that, because I don't experience that at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I can give you a background on this. And by the way, if you're listening or watching right now, do you have a sense of this? Do you have a sense of, is thinking or feeling from your perspective presented to you by the world as one of them is more pure and the other one can be corrupted more easily?
See, because my experience is the opposite.
Well, let me tell you what my experience is before you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want you to jump and clarify yet.
Well, based on the question that you just asked to, dear audience member,
yeah.
I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like feeling is always presented as ethical and pure, and thinking is the corruptible, evil one. So you're going to have to...
Not at all. Okay, so here's what happened. Here's the context.
Okay.
I'm looking around on the internet. I love looking at adverts, like advertisements, because I'm like, okay, we need to offer our wares, what we do here at Personality Hacker. And so I'm always looking at advertisements, and I've been noticing there's a lot more AI advertisements. And there's this advertisement that came through, and it must be because of my feed. It started talking about things like Jung, and it was like this mystery. It was like this graphic, this AI image graphic. It said midnight at the top. It had this woman like on her phone laying in bed, like a cartoon character. And it had like all these, like midnight. And it was like Jung's mistake. And she didn't know her friends would be tuned into this. And I'm like, what the heck? None of this makes any sense. Like none of this makes any sense. But it kind of makes emotional sense, I guess. It's like trying to trigger a bunch of emotions. So I take it, I screenshot it, I throw it up into ChatGPT. I'm like, explain this ad to me. Like, this doesn't make logical sense. Like, I would never want to click on this. It doesn't explain what's behind it. I always thought clarity is what you need in advertising, right? I'm asking it these questions.
Like direct copy.
Yeah. Right. This is what this is about. This is what you're going to get. This is all like kind of hazy.
Was it like the Zygarnik effect?
Well, that's what chat said. It's like, This is all designed to hit on the emotional buttons. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And then I click through and I go to the actual page it lands on, and I look at the structure of the page, and I just copy the structure of the page. I put it in chat. I'm like, what do you notice about how they're constructing this page after you click through the ad? Because it does have some like written, it's like an article, one of those like fake articles. It looks junky, right? It looks like one of these like scam type of things. And they're trying to get you to take, weirdly enough, a version of a personality test at the bottom. So first of all, I'm like, I don't like the way they're presenting this. So I already have, but I didn't say that to chat. I just said, give me the mechanisms of what's going on here. And it basically broke down the page, all the emotional triggers. Mm-hmm. And I said, could we learn anything from this ad and this page? Because I try to be really logical and clear in my writing. Could we learn from this to use in our own marketing at Personality Hacker? And chat said, yes, but you wouldn't want to copy the unethical parts. And I'm like, well, I didn't say anything was unethical. Where are you getting unethical from? And I was like, well, and it started talking about the emotional triggers that were in the article, like the way it was stated to get the emotional response. And it was couching that as unethical. And I'm like, why are we assuming that's unethical? If something strikes somebody emotional, why are we assuming that's something they didn't want? There's this new law in Europe that we're contending with very soon as well. It's called the cooling off period when somebody purchases something. And now there's a rule that if you want to sell in Europe, you have to have a button on your website that can give a person that purchased like on an impulse buy with emotion, a cooling off period where they can get an instant refund within 14 days of a purchase. And inherent in that framework too is like, well, emotions are how you get people to do unethical. You use emotions to be unethical and get to them to do an action that they didn't really want to take. Mm-hmm. And once they get into their thoughts and the clarity of their thinking, and what makes logical sense, they might change their mind based on logic. And when the purity of logic enters, again, I'm projecting onto this, then they can go back and hit that button when the logic finally hits what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we could even say this for products at stores. I tell my daughter, don't buy it, sleep on it a night, go back in when you're not emotional around it with your clear thinking. So even I buy into this premise that emotions are like unethical. They get people to do things they don't want to do. People get resentful when they do something emotional and then they think about it later. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why has that developed? Why has that emerged that way?
Yeah.
And you're saying you have the exact opposite experience.
Well, I mean, I think this is probably where the concept of channels is really important because I think when we're dealing with certain channels, you want to have a cooler head. So when you're talking about making purchases, now I'm tagging the whole concept of the ad because I think really what this comes down to is the idea of manipulation. Right, like emotional manipulation is what's being called unethical.
I like the word persuasion better, but you could use the word manipulation. I'll allow it.
Well, and there's like an ethical fine line between persuasion and manipulation, and you've got something more.
Well, I was just going to ask while Antonia is saying this, if you could report, you're listening or watching, just the framing I gave. Do you have an instant thing that flashes for you for how we've gotten so far in the conversation? I'm curious, as the conversation goes, like to hear people's thinking as it develops or their emotions as it develops. What's going on for you? If you could leave a comment or share below this episode.
So the channel of, purchasing is the channel of resource, right? You're exchanging your resource ostensibly of money for a product that is going to be worth that money. But at the end of the day, money actually more represents time and life force than it does little biosurvival tickets. It's actually our time and our life force that we pour, our energy that we pour into things. And so the channel of resource is a thinking channel. Right. Like I think of it as like extroverted thinking or effectiveness channel.
Sure.
Which is I'm collecting my resource together, my energy. I'm representing it in these little, they're no longer really tickets anymore. Like they used to be dollars, but now they're just ones and zeros, digital ones and zeros. And since I'm going to be handing over my life force that is represented in these ones and zeros, I want to make sure that what I'm getting in return is worth my life force. Like it's going to amplify my life in some way. It's going to make it better in some way. And the reason why you don't want to do too much, you don't want to be in too much of a frame of emotional, like an immediate impulse buy is because you are exchanging your life force. And so since I'm exchanging my life force, I want to make sure that the thing I'm getting is a fair exchange. Now, some people just want the hit of having made a purchase. Like that all by itself is a feeling of positivity and that they feel like that's a good exchange for life force, their own life force. Like there are people who just the act of purchasing is the actual thing that they're purchasing. Does that make sense? It's just the feeling of it, that dopamine hit. So there's a wide range, from there all the way down to like, I will only spend money if I know that it is attuned to my survival and my a really deep understanding of all the things that I derive pleasure from. And I will not part with a nickel until it hits all of these, these different parameters. And so you've got people who will spend just for the dopamine hit of having spent, all the way over to I only spend when I absolutely know that it isn't a sure thing that it will amplify and beautify my life. And then you've got everybody else in between.
Yeah.
So what the individual decides is worth their life force is up to the individual. Now, that makes selling very difficult because now you are trying to attune to a whole bunch of different, evaluative criteria.
Yeah.
You're trying to find, if you have a product to sell, you're trying to find your ideal customer. You want it to be a win-win. Otherwise, that's really what scamming is. Scamming is you don't care if it's a win-win. Like you just want to get the money from the person and you don't care if it was a fair exchange for their life force. Any person who is an ethical business person though, and has a product to sell, they want to make sure that it was a win-win, right? That's why you price it at a certain point. That's why you figure out what the market wants. You look for your ideal client or customer. Like you've got a lot of considerations in there. But the challenge is that it is also a saturated market and everybody's trying to get attention, and like everybody's trying to, like get eyeballs going their direction.
Yeah.
So it's not just this beautiful calculus of figuring out all these, like I find my perfect client and I've got my perfect product and it's a perfect product market fit and it's priced just right. I also have to get them to pay attention to me in a saturated market of everybody trying to get their attention.
Yeah.
And so when it moves into that space, even though the act is I would call it quote unquote thinking channel act of resource exchange and evaluation.
Yeah.
The challenge is that in order for somebody to even pay attention to you, you have to now start going into other channels. You have to go into the channel of flashy and getting attention and like trying to get the person to put eyeballs on you. You have to go to the challenge of persuasion and making it so that they are motivated, which comes from a feeling channel. Right? Motivation and intention and all that stuff is more of like an introverted feeling place. So then you have to now dip into a more feeling place. And so now it's not just like one thing. Now it's like you've got a bunch of different channels. And that is easier for people to make accusations when things are cross-channel.
Sure.
That's when now it's not so easy, it's not so clear-cut, and people start making accusations of each other that's like, oh, you're not doing it ethically.
I'm going to push back on the whole frame, though.
Okay.
I do think there's a thinking transactional element to it. That's maybe 1% of anything that's actually happening.
You mean in a purchase?
In any... the second thing, we're giving our life force to a bunch of things that aren't purchase. Like we're giving it to attention and social media feeds,
of course,
and people.
Oh yeah. No, we give it away like crazy.
Distractions and TV and like whatever.
Yeah.
Like so we've isolated just the purchase channel, purchase channel, but we're transacting all the time with other values that would not be considered unethical. It's only when it comes over to this channel. That's why I'm again. It's when it's seen as unethical, like definitively. The next thing I think is zero things happen. Anything transactional happens outside of emotion, like zero, nothing. Maybe if you're a person that you walked up to your partner that you're with and you logically explained to them why they should be with you and they decide to be with you, I need to hear from you because I think that has never happened in the history of the world. Like no one, and if you have, it's more of a business agreement. It's not actually a partnership, right? It's not like a love partnership. It's like, I'm sure there are constructed relationships where it's transactional and you both have like an extroverted thinking construct, and there's clear value exchange, but that's not really a love partnership. I guess you could grow into love, but it's more of a constructed like arrangement. So I know those exist, but let's talk about a personal romantic pairing. No one has been logically like convinced into that.
Yeah. Well,
that's and I'm using that to say the next thing, but go ahead, say something about that too.
So what I hear you saying is that there's no thinking that comes without feeling.
I'm saying that no one buys from a logical place. No one, even logical people.
No, I didn't
Period.
say I didn't. But so I just want to make sure that you understand that I wasn't saying that people are making a decision based on logic. I'm saying that resource is a thinking channel. That's a different statement. Does that not land?
I don't think life force is a thinking channel. I think I push back on that frame. I think it's a whole body channel. I think all of our cognitive functions, our entire life force, my feelings, my thoughts, my body, my intuition, all of it is invested in creating the life force.
I would agree with that.
The transaction might happen on an extroverted thing. Like the money might be expressed in like
a
very specific channel of the transaction.
That's what I'm saying. It's like that's the channel of the money leaving and a something else that is hopefully of the same value returning.
Yeah.
That is done on a thinking channel.
But that's the only thing that's done on that channel is like the literal, like the digits that move from my bank to your bank. That's the only thing that's thinking about all of it. Everything else is emotion. Even the logic we think we use to make those decisions, we're using that logic to justify the emotional reason we want to make that decision. Well, in other words, I've already decided emotionally I'm going to make this purchase, and I use a bunch of logic to justify my emotion. The emotion comes first, logic comes later. And this is my perspective, the transaction then, yes, the actual digits, there is that's going on that channel, yes.
I'm going to tag the thing that's coming up for me right now because I did a lot of talking to sort of explain why I thought it was on a thinking, like people see it as primarily a thinking channel because of the resource exchange. And so I think that people believe that all the rules should be following it that way too. I agree with you. I think life force is way more holistic than that. And I think I would agree with the statement that I said the statement, there's nothing thinking that comes without feeling. And we know that based on the principle of polarities, that all thinking and feel, like all evaluative criteria have those two sides of them for sure.
Absolutely.
But I think I'm going to tag what I was going to say because I want to hear more about the track you're laying, like the kind of the central purpose or point. That people believe that somehow feeling is corruptive and thinking is pure.
Yeah, that's basically the point I'm trying to get to, because I think we're off the tangent. The way we're going, no one's going to agree with me. They're going to agree with you. Well, this is a thinking, like the way you framed it, like my point's going to be missed. The point is that we pre-assume that feeling is going to corrupt and thinking is going to clarify and purify. Like, I think that's our culture, and we carry these beliefs unconsciously with us this is just one instance of that. And I think that I don't want to get distracted on the example, because I think this is just the example of what I'm trying to say.
Well,
and I understand in that example, I see what you're saying about the resource on that channel, but I'm trying to bring it to I'm just trying to use that as an example to bring it to a larger conversation.
Okay. So I'm glad that we went back to the point of origin.
Thank you.
And if you have more that you wanted to say on that, please let me know. But let me give you a counter example. And it probably seemed like I went into this whole thing around money and resource and all that stuff, but actually that was more conversation about channels than it was about the specific example.
Fair
Does
enough.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll give you why I said I actually experienced it the opposite, because I think I'm experiencing also in cross channels, right? Like trying to determine what a channel is and then crossing it over and then having an accusation come up, which all sounds very abstract, but I think it'll make sense in a moment. So, I feel like I've always been told the opposite, which is that because I'm not a feeler, I'm not taking people's feelings into consideration enough. And most of my choices and sort of the ways that I see the world, I mean, I think that most people are hypersensitive. I think most people are way oversensitive. And in times past, there was sort of this gruff, well, life is hard and get over it mentality and feeling. And in especially the last 15 years, but particularly the last 30 years, and there can be a case made for it, that there's space for gentleness, space for a little bit more room and accommodation, and recognizing that some people are just, like maybe more highly sensitive physically or emotionally or spiritually or whatever, and that there should be some space made for that. But I also think that we have gone way too much the other direction. I think that we are officially, and I can't see it in any other way other than we are in coddling territory at all times. And so when I say, well, that actually is an unsustainable model. Like, while we want to be considerate of people's feelings, people also do need to become more resilient. They just do. And if you go, I'm a highly sensitive person, because I actually am. I'm actually a highly sensitive person in a couple different ways. I never talk about it because it is not one of the things I want to model. But when it comes to like perfumes and scents, I'm incredibly sensitive. I mean, taking Ubers in Europe was like the worst thing in the world for me, because like 1 out of 3 cars had way, way, way too strong musk or perfume, and I would get immediate headaches, and it was like a big pain, right? And it was kind of awful. But I tried not to complain about it, and I just went, well, this is a me thing, not a them thing, right? I would have preferred my Ubers not to be oversaturated in some sort of scent or perfume, but that's just how it is, and what am I supposed to do about it, right? Take it out on everybody? So I just figured out strategies to deal with it and moved on. And I kind of feel like that's like, if I have something where I'm sensitive, that's a me thing. That's not a world thing. Like, the world does not need to accommodate me. And that's how I see things. Like, I'm a thinker type, and I'm like, let's get more resilient, get tougher, figure your own stuff out. It's a you problem, not an everybody else problem. So figure it out and navigate through life, and hope that the people who love you will make accommodations, right? Like, you guys love me, so you guys don't wear a ton of perfume, but strangers don't. So why should they care, right? And man alive, when I say stuff like that, I get so much pushback. Oh, I'm so mean. I'm awful. Like, I'm not sensitive enough to people's, problems or individual circumstances, when my solutions tend to be, hard-hearted, and it's because it's coming from a thinker side. And so, thinkers, they don't take people's feelings into consideration. They're not humanizing enough. And so they're not doing things that are ethical, right? Kind, considerate, and ethical. So that's my experience on the other side. Now we're talking about people's feelings. So we're in the channel of feeling, right? Emotions. We're in the channel of evaluating things based on how they are striking a person or a group of people, like in the humanizing channel. So when I make these statements, I recognize I'm on a humanizing channel. But just like you said, there's no thinking that comes without feeling. There's no feeling that comes without thinking either.
Yeah.
So I'm also like, what, are we only supposed to just like, I don't know, just constantly and perpetually sit around and jerking off to people's feelings? Or do we actually have problems we have to solve and things we have to do? And sometimes people are a casualty, or their feelings or whatever are a casualty to this. And why is that an unethical stance to take as well?
So that's really curious that you hear that as unethical, because I think what I would assume you have heard, and by the way, if you're listening or watching, what is your take on that? Do you think people see that thinking as unethical? I always thought people just thought it was unkind. It was a little bit callous. It was uncaring, but it wasn't manipulative and unethical. Like, people aren't going, well, your thinking's manipulating people and it's unethical. But feelings are definitely couched that way. So maybe I'm, again, in the act of, I'm coming maybe from like a communicative, persuasive way, not just in an ideation way. Like, I have a thought about something and people couch it as unethical. Maybe that is true, but in the midst of, like, if you were going to persuade somebody to come to do something with us, I think a lot of people see it as, if you do any emotional persuasion tricks to get them to take that behavior, that's unethical.
Right.
But if you explain it in a perfectly logical way and they decide to do that, that is ethical.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, so I guess I am maybe not saying in all ways that's how people see it, but I think in a communication or persuasion way, that's the frame I'm coming from.
Well, but if I think that not everybody is designed to be wealthy because not everybody has enough value they don't have enough to offer. And I'm sorry, but not everybody gets to be wealthy, right? Which is one of the sort of the results that comes from my way of thinking. And if there's opportunity there, but not everybody can take advantage of that opportunity, well, then, basically we get value exchange based on the value that we have to offer. And that includes me. Sometimes I don't have enough value to offer and I take a financial hit for it. But this idea of like, well, if you're poor, or like if you don't have a lot of money and you want more money, then you're going to have to win in a, basically in the free, the fair market or the free market. You're going to have to figure out how to win the game there. And some people are just like, I don't want to have to do that, but I also don't want to be poor. And I go, well, then I guess you're going to have to come to some reconciliations within. That whole mindset ends up in some people's mind just hitting, like, that is an unethical way of looking at reality. Like the whole philosophy is unethical to many people, that we should just be taking care of everybody equally. When I'm like, I don't think that that's a sustainable model. So the reason why I say that, I feel like thinking, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about persuasion and manipulation and allowing
communication, and
allowing yourself to, or giving yourself permission to communicate to people in ways that will hit certain emotional triggers to encourage certain actions. And that person in that moment might be handing themselves over to you to do it. And then later on, they might be like, wow, I think I got caught up in something there, right? And a person might say, well, it's unethical to do that, no matter, even if the thing that you were encouraging them to do was in their best interest, even if it ended up being a positive thing for them, just the fact that you were willing to do it is quote unquote unethical. And I think that's what you're speaking to. Whereas with me, it feels like my entire worldview is usually considered unethical, because I'm like, yeah, reality says that not all of us make it out in the way that we, does that make sense? So it's like,
yeah. And I think if you zoom out to that level, I can see where you're coming from. I can see feeler types or people that lean heavier on feelings, even if they're thinkers in personality theory.
Yeah.
I could see them saying that's unethical to say, survival of the fittest, pick yourself by the bootstraps. We have the technology and the distribution channels and the will to distribute wealth widely.
Yeah.
So it's unethical to say everybody's got to make their own way in the world when we have the mechanisms just to take care of everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and I can see an argument for that. I maybe don't agree with that, and there's some nuance to it and some other assumptions that's making.
Well, I do. I think that when anybody gets something unearned, they don't appreciate it. I mean, it's very rare. They have to be taught appreciation. And so the idea that we can just take care of everybody, to me, is not necessarily a sustainable model. Even if, like, take, for example, UBI, Universal Basic Income, maybe that becomes a thing in the near future. And I'm totally fine with Universal Basic Income. But the idea that we can just totally equalize and that's somehow a sustainable model, to me, that feels like a fantasy.
It is, of course, yeah.
And it's filled with a bunch of people who have like they're kind of already spoiled to think about it in that way, that everybody would just be equal, because there's a bunch of unearned reward in there, and unearned experiences almost always turn people a little jacked up.
Sure.
Like they're constantly trying to, prove that they earned something they didn't actually earn. So I think it's an unsustainable model. And then that sounds, but it sounds like I'm just a meanie. And there was a time in the past where being mean was not unethical. It was just being mean. But I think we've entered a time period where if you're not constantly fronting compassion or performing compassion in all these different ways, you are considered unethical.
Sure.
To not be like perpetually, fronting, or like what's the word when you
signal.
If you're not constantly and perpetually signaling compassion, you are put in an unethical camp.
I'm glad we went here, because I think this helps for somebody that was thinking this way. It allowed me to be a little bit more specific, because I didn't know where I was going to take this conversation when we started.
Yeah.
Specific to, I think I'm talking about the communication, persuasion.
Yeah.
Convincing, offering and inviting people into something.
Right.
Motivating them to take action to something, whether it's and this could be anywhere. I mean, you talked about the money transaction, but it could be like joining an email list for a political cause. It could be coming out to a rally for a political cause or an active cause, or it could be donating to a nonprofit. It could be volunteering your time for, kids in your neighborhood that need help, like underprivileged kids, like whatever it is. When we're communicating to people a need or an action we want them to take, and we're trying to persuade them, and we're in the realm of persuasion, there's a belief I believe people carry that it is more pure to do that with logic and direct words than it is to do it with emotional energies and storytelling and techniques that will get them into emotional states to make those actions.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, and this, I go back to my original premise, is I believe this, and I don't think I could be disabused of this very easily, that every decision, to a transactional decision, is an emotional decision. And if we have logic in there, the logic is only as a proof case support for the emotion decision we want to make.
Yeah.
And this is proven by, do you realize how hard it is to sell to like NTPs?
Yeah.
Like people that use introverted thinking.
Yeah.
Because they don't make very many emotional decisions.
Right.
So they don't buy much.
Right.
Because people buy an emotion, and they just don't have a lot of that like trigger. It's hard to trigger that in them.
It is.
And they're not buying off logic, because they're like, well, I can do logic myself. I would go do it myself.
Right.
And so I think, like, looking at personality type, the feeling dominants are way easier to persuade to make a sale than the thinking dominants. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I know that because people make decisions based on emotion. So you have to reach people in the emotional realm to get them to make the unconscious decision. And then they're going to bring all the proof of why this is a good decision.
Right.
They'll justify it to themselves. That's like marketing 101.
Yeah.
I already know that. But the question is, but then it's like this idea that thinking is more pure and feeling is dirty and corrupt. And if it's almost like, aha, my thinking caught up finally. And I realized you were getting me to do an emotional decision, you bastard. Like, now I want to refund. It's like that, almost like regret, like after the event.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because
buyer's remorse.
Yeah, it's just frustrating to me because I don't think it's unethical, but I also understand I'm not trying to I don't want to be manipulative in a harmful way. Yeah. But I do want to persuade people. I mean, we go to movies because it puts us in an emotional state. Everything we do, or often what we do when we're trying to It's like emotional. We want to be in the story of it. We want to be in the feelings of it. I want to feel good about our decisions, etc.
Yeah, and I don't think that this is just a rationalization as a marketer to give yourself permission to, to jerk people's emotional chain just to try to get them to purchase something.
No.
I think what I'm hearing you say, and I'm glad that you pinpointed it specifically to emotional manipulation as opposed to, because the whole idea of like, we use
persuasion again instead of manipulation. Okay, it's
or
fine.
Persuasion. No.
I don't mind the word manipulation, but most people can't hold that as an okay thing. They're like, that's immediately categorized as bad for them.
They're actually they are two separate things.
Yeah.
They actually are. Like for a lot of people, it's splitting hairs, but they live in two different camps. And persuasion isn't necessarily emotional. Like that's part of what you're trying to do when you're sharing your thoughts is trying to persuade with your logic. So persuasion isn't just an emotional thing. It can also be, like thoughtful or logical persuasion. But I think the reason why it took me a little bit to get to where you're talking is because the idea that thoughts are necessarily more pure than emotions is laughable to me. Like most people's thoughts are wildly corrupted by terrible premises and jumping to conclusions and not thinking them through.
But no one thinks that about their own thoughts. But they would think that about their emotions. Like, oh, I was angry at that person. I had bad emotions. But no one has like a purity. Maybe you do if you're listening or watching. Let me know. Leave a comment. But it seems like not very many people have a purity filter on their thoughts, but they do on their emotions, and especially other people's emotions.
I mean, isn't this why introverted thinking or accuracy as a function exists at all? Like, is to try to purify the thought, if at all possible. And there's plenty of them to be purified. And that's why, like you said, that's why TP types tend to not buy a lot, because they just, as soon as something is presented, the impulse is to reevaluate it and is to kind of question it for a moment.
I would say refine over purity. Purity feels very like debt, judgment, forgiveness frame.
Okay, whatever word you want to use, I don't care.
Refined thoughts?
A
yes.
refined thought.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, purity not as in like,
justified to God. Purity, that's what I immediately think.
See, when I think of pure, I think of something that just doesn't have corruptive elements in it. Like pure does not mean good, bad. Pure means closer to like the original sort of, or like whatever is the as close to the pure substance of the thing.
Sure.
And so to me, logic can be pure or impure, although nothing is totally pure. Obviously, everything has corruption in it on some level. But I think this is why the function exists. And this is why to your point, that's why everybody claims to be good at it. Because nobody wants to see that there's tons of premises. Like they'll question a thought, but they won't go to the premise level. Like not really, not truly, not at the basement premise level. Most people are not willing to question that.
They have a hard time finding it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, tons of people who think they're good at introverted thinking would be shocked to discover just how like the premises they're questioning are actually like 5 clicks up from the actual premise that lives all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
And most people don't want to think that they have like fuzzy math sometime, in there, or how much their desire is encouraging them to think a certain thing, or how much their alignment with good and bad is altering the conclusion, right? It's like, well, that would be a bad thing, so it's not okay to think that. And it's like, well, but the truth doesn't care what is good and bad. It's like, it is the truth no matter what.
You hosted a program around this, by the way. It's called Make Your Arguments Bulletproof. It's basically a way to refine your introverted thinking process. We have it as a masterclass on our website. It's a really great training. We walk people through like how to unpack this.
Yeah.
And Z, who's on our team, gave it to Eric, who has INTP preferences. He's like, this is pretty good. He's like, he's working with his TI. He's like, this really helped me get it out and refine some of my thinking. And he has this as his driver. Mm-hmm. So it was useful to even him. I think if you're interested in refining your thoughts further, it's not for the faint of heart, because you have to be braced for just how dirty your thinking often is when you start this process. Yeah. I was realized, wow, I am way off on some of these premises.
Well, I'll just say this. Most of the people who are like, I'm really good at introverted feeling, get to the end of something like this.
Introverted thinking.
Oh, sorry, introverted thinking. They're like, I'm really good at introverted thinking. And they'll get to the end of something like they're like, to this, and they're just like, I barely could do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because the rigor that's required to do introverted thinking well, I mean, we're all doing introverted thinking. We're just not all doing it well. and that, I mean, I didn't do it well for the first 30 years of my life, so I know just how bad it can get, even though it's a preferred function. So I know how I know how off it can be. But the point of that is, most people's thoughts are not pure, quote unquote pure, and I don't mean like in a good and bad way. I just mean that they're not very refined. They're not. Their conclusions are, there's a lot of drift that happens between the conclusion and what reality would actually serve up if we could tune into it directly and reality could tell us how everything is actually operating and working. So the idea that thinking is somehow, less. Is it okay if I use the word pure here?
Sure, you can use
thinking
pure,
is more pure.
Colloquially, it's colloquially.
and somehow feelings or emotions or conclusions that have been derived from feeling basis is less pure. And to speak on that channel is somehow unethical. Because I think, to your point, most of us, I mean, what did they say? People don't remember anything other than how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we're all attuning to. We're basically all attuning to how experiences and other people and things are making us feel. And we're heading towards the things that make us feel better. And we're heading away from the things that make us feel worse as a general rule.
Yeah.
And so if that's, how we are navigating through life, heading towards the things that make us feel good, if a person can tune into that energy and speak to it, just because they have awareness around it and an understanding of how to play in that realm does not make them unethical. It doesn't make them a bad faith actor necessarily. They just understand a channel better than maybe some other people do. In the same way that, have you heard a specious argument? I have. I've heard many specious arguments where somebody breaks down the logic of something and it totally sounds true. And yeah, absolutely. That's how that works. And then you look at the thing in the argument and it's like riddled with biases and cognitive distortions and all sorts of like false premises. And it's like, that was persuasive to somebody. And I'm like, and it was bullshit. So
sure,
we like being able on the flip side, talking somebody, helping them follow the logic of something where you actually are communicating in very logical ways and have, I would call, good introverted thinking, arguments and persuasion. You can get somebody to the end of one of those roads and convince them of something, and now they have to reevaluate all their life choices, and now they blow up their life based on it. So is that ethical, even though it's true? It's like, yeah.
Can I zoom in on something to ask really specific? I'm asking this for a reason, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you don't have a current organized religion faith that you believe in right now.
I do not at this time. No.
Because your thinking process says, well, that if I join something that's already there, it would be exactly what you just said, riddled with premises and dirty logic and thinking. I want to make sure I'm clear before I project. I don't want to project something on, but
I'm not opposed to joining a religion, but the religion would have to fit all of my introverted thinking criteria. And at this time, I have not run into one that has done so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And I understand a hardcore thinker right now that's listening or watching, including you, going, I'm not going to join something that makes me, maybe it even really satisfies me on an emotional channel. Maybe it has a sense of belonging, makes me have a sense of spirituality. I get to come in and sing and pray and worship in whatever way, I feel.
Teaches good values.
Like I can get behind all of that, mm-hmm. But there's all these premises that are carpet bombed through the whole structure.
Yeah.
Things that don't make sense, things that are required of me that I don't agree with the premise, like all these things.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that because it doesn't satisfy those things. I want to imagine, and I don't know if this is true, that if you flipped it and you had a purely logical religious structure that did have all the premises lined up and everything made perfect sense, but there was no heart or emotion in it, and it was that was missing, that would be okay. Like it would still be valid. In other words, like most people would say, it doesn't matter if I don't feel it. If it's true, I'm gonna it's more pure. It would stand on its own without the emotional part. But the other doesn't stand. The emotion doesn't stand without the logic, but the logical religion would stand without the emotional. Well, and that's really interesting to me. Yeah. And I think it's very nuanced, and I think it's an unconscious belief that we have in our heads as humans. Because I think most people would be like, yeah, if it was like a logical framework, I will buy it, even if the emotion doesn't make me feel good at all. That's a hypothetical positing I'm putting out there that I think I'm right about.
Well, I mean, I think,
or I'm onto the trail of something.
What comes up for me is, first of all, we have something like that. We call it math and science, right?
Yeah.
And while people give space for it to exist, I don't think that people are entering STEM in droves or anything, right? Like I know we're not talking about a religion necessarily, but we are talking about something that kind of, like requires you to sort of have a faithfulness to it. So like the scientific, Well,
the hope is that on a long enough timeline, math and science will give us all the answers that God provided before. I mean, that's the expectation, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of there can be assumptions around that in some factions, but I think that's more of a modernist take. Actually, I think we're kind of letting go of that idea that it's not a complete picture. But that said, I think there are plenty of people who, if say science, which I don't think it actually is, but let's pretend it's entirely objective and not riddled with its own biases and doesn't follow the rule of scientific progress is made one funeral at a time, right? Like it's got its own problems. But let's pretend that it is as pure, quote unquote, pure in that way as possible.
Satisfies all the thinking criteria.
There are plenty of people who reject the results and just don't care. Tons and tons and tons of people. And
sure.
And especially if it goes against their values and their ethics, the things that mean something to them. Like, so that's the first thing that comes up is like, I think even in your positing, I don't necessarily think I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. I think we do have some models of how people reject it if it doesn't hit, sit well with them in a conscious way.
Yes, individuals will reject it. But what I'm saying is there's an unconscious belief that thinking is superior to feeling when it comes to these kinds of things. Like if I was going to persuade somebody to come to my religion, it feels more legit to use logic and proof than it would to use emotion and, well, just because it feels good, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels more legit. Most people think that's more legit. That's my point I'm trying to make. Well, not that you wouldn't have outliers. Of course, there's people going to reject that quote unquote legitimacy. But in a general sense, we carry this unconscious belief that thinking is more legit than feeling.
Okay, I want to give that to you just a little bit. I'm going to tag that over here. The second thing that came up for me though, because I think I know what you're getting at. And can I be radically honest?
Please.
It's a very feeler perspective.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm representing a perspective outside that. I'm just, this is what I was thinking about.
I know. And that's why I want to hold space for it. And I kind of want to really look at it on its own terms. But at the same time, there's a bunch of stuff coming up for me being like, yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I will say, but I think I know what you're talking about. Here's the other thing that comes up for me in this concept of religion. And I know that these are just examples and I don't want to get too much in the weeds of them, but religion almost always asks us to believe it's thinking. That's part of it. It's not just asking us to enjoy the benefits of all of the other things that come along with it, like the spiritual attunement or the the fellowship or the good moral lessons or the, refined, modeling of becoming, like grace and mercy and love and all those things. It doesn't just ask us to do that. It also usually, not always, but it usually asks us to also believe its worldview completely. Like you have to pare it back, and if you don't believe this thought, well, that's heresy. Or if you don't believe this thought, that's, you're not part of my religion anymore. And so I think it's one of the criteria it makes. It demands us to do that. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of thinkers, not even thinkers, but anybody who can't fully buy into something like that, they tend to kind of get hemorrhaged out.
Yeah.
Because the religion is asking us not to just benefit from the intuitive and the feeling and even some of the thinking things, right? It goes, no, it's hard. It hard lines it. Whereas something
tribal.
Like
it's very tribal. It's like
yes.
you're on the in tribe and now you can't think differently. We're trying to think the same here.
Right. Which, by the way, weirdly enough, has its own benefits. right? Like there's like there's a reason that exists, and there's a reason why. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why all these things exist and actually have good things that are a part of them. It's just when they have bad things, that's really obvious, and we tend to push away. But the idea of like I mentioned, science and math and STEM and all that stuff. It doesn't ask us to fellowship with it. It doesn't ask us to. It just asks us to buy the discoveries and the emergence. It doesn't ask us to be part of the fellowship. Although there are parts of that when you get into, say, academia, right? Or when you get into areas where everybody's like vying for
they
supremacy
literally call
of
them
thought.
fellowships sometimes.
Exactly. So there is a little bit of that, but I think it's not as hard line. It doesn't feel as hard lined.
Yeah.
But it's also not a formal religion, right? It's not like it's made for a different purpose. But to go back to what you were talking about, which is that there's in this, I'm going to repeat back what I think you're actually saying. In the zeitgeist, whether this has always been this way or if it's just contemporary world or whatever, in the zeitgeist, there is a thought or a sentiment rather, that thinking criteria, and when we say thinking criteria, we're talking about anything that is the result of empiricism or objective truth or reality, or the result of us trying to solve problems and all of the learning and understanding that comes from those experiments and all of the logic that gets, and how it actually works in reality if we're going to play it out, and the metrics and the refined logic and all of that stuff. That there is somehow something that is more pure about that because it doesn't introduce maybe a corrupted human element. It's not out of control. It's not, it doesn't make us feel uncomfortable. It is what it is, and it's a direct thing. And so we can rely on it and lean on it better. And it's all the feeling stuff that tends to throw everything off.
And the feeling stuff that tends to be weaponized as the unethical thing later.
Right.
And I have another example of this too. It's a little bit more sensitive example. I'm a little afraid to go here because I want people to hear the example, not get distracted by it. But I've told both of my sons, I say there's this issue of consent. Mm-hmm. And if you're together with somebody and you're caught up in the emotion of it, and there's like a tacit agreement emotionally between you and another person, I said, that's not going to be legitimate enough possibly later. Like even if the communication is clear emotionally and it is in the moment, you have to move it to legitimize it. You have to move it to a very crass logical thinking channel and have a direct, like words that potentially kill the vibe have to be passed back and forth to create consent. Yeah. And I said, that's just the reality that we're in. And I think that's the way you need to show up as young men in the world. Yeah. But that's like, it's trying to do a transaction on a channel that actually doesn't, like, that's not the channel where it started, but I understand why it exists. But that's what I mean. Like, that's a good example of how the feeling of it, because feelings could be misunderstood, maybe misinterpreted. There's premise, but the thinking is like more, like if you've got the thinking there, then that's more pure, and that's okay if you move it on this channel. But it's not necessarily not as pure or not as legit, but you take a lot of risk because there could be misunderstanding. I guess that's what I would say. Yeah. And I understand that there is misunderstanding there. It's a very sensitive thing. And I understand that there needs to be cooperative energies. And so that's again, this thinking brought into everything. I understand on that channel, but then I think that gets replicated everywhere. Yeah. Well, and that's another case of buyer's remorse. Yeah, it just feels weird on all these, it's like, it doesn't honor what really is going on. Again, I'm trying to be careful because I don't think I'm saying you shouldn't get consent directly from somebody that you. No,
I think it's very clear that you said you do need to get consent.
I want to make sure that's clear. I just am saying that it's like, it complicates things when you add another channel that it's not where it originated. You know what I mean?
Well, you're hedging no, you're not hedging, but I think it's very clear that you communicated to your boys that it's very important to get consent, even if it's killing the vibe.
Yes. Right. That's what I've communicated to them.
And I think the only reason why that's an uncomfortable thing is not only are we bringing up a topic that's very
divisive.
What's that?
Very divisive.
Yeah. But also because, we sort of have to do it because, like I said, for some people it's because they were pressured into doing something they didn't want to do.
Yes.
But then there's also a percentage of people who weren't pressured into doing it. They did it, and then they regretted their decision later, even though nobody pressured them. They were just going with a vibe. And then now they've got buyer's remorse, and those become dangerous people. So, and I say that as a woman. It's like, if there was no coercion, right? And you just were having a good time, and then the next day you're like, oh, what did I do last night? And and you don't feel good about your choices.
Yeah.
It is not it's not unheard of. I don't think it's all the time, but I don't think it's unheard of for people to take their regret about their own choices and project it onto other people.
Just move that to the European law around purchases, the 14-day cooling off period. So we don't have to be in the consent realm. We can just talk over there.
Yes.
It's the same thinking over there that I was manipulated into making this decision emotionally, and now I've thought about it, and now I need a mechanism in 14 days to get a refund, because I literally have buyer's remorse. Like, that's a literal example.
A literal
of that.
Buyer's remorse. That's right. And then I'm going to project it, I mean, it's less projecting ill intent, but I mean, for us as a digital company, unless we're talking about a live event or an experience that we're hosting, if somebody does that to us, they can consume all the content they purchased in 14 days, right? And then they can just hit, they can just say that they want a refund, and then now they got to consume all of the content and then just get a refund anyway.
Yeah.
And so for us,
law doesn't care about that.
Law doesn't care about that. Yeah. Screw the business owner, right? Like, screw them. But I mean, I understand that like basically in some ways, to go back to the idea of being coddled, in some ways, governments are trying to keep us from not making terrible decision, not terrible, but they're trying to make it so that they are accounting for the fact that we are not always adults in our decision making. And in some ways, you kind of need I mean, this goes back to my thinking sort of unethical way of looking at things, but like I kind of feel like I need to be slapped around whenever I make a terrible decision.
Sure.
I do. I mean, the last couple of years, I'm being slapped around for some terrible decisions I made when I was younger. And every single time I'm like, okay, I guess I have like the universe's handprint on my face again, but I won't make that decision again in the future. Now, some terrible decisions have consequences that are outsized, or some bad decisions have outsized consequences. And I always think that's a bitter pill to swallow when it's a really bad consequence for kind of a small mistake. That's not great. But boy, do you learn your lesson, right? And I don't think that we should always be saved from I don't think we should ever be saved from our decisions. The outsized consequences can sometimes be, balanced out. People can come through and help you out when you're experiencing those, right? And we all kind of have each other's backs, and I think that's important. But to make it so that government entities get to just, they get in there and disrupt human, dynamics that are important dynamics for life. It's kind of like when kids fight on the playground and teachers rush up and separate them and don't allow them to get to the other side. And I don't mean like punching each other out. I mean like one kid steals somebody else's toy and that kid cries, and you're rushing in to solve the problem, as opposed to allowing the children to kind of like, for the kid who took the toy, sit with the fact that this other kid is crying and feel how that feels inside. And then the kid who's crying feels how awful it is to have been not bullied, but have somebody steal their toy and then like go get it back, or try to, you know what I mean? Like,
they understand things about themselves in that dynamic.
There's a bunch of,
if you neutralize it cuts out learning.
Absolutely. There's a bunch of incredibly important things that are being learned in those dynamics, but we have become the kinds of people that now rush in and solve it before the learning can be.
That's just because they're
created.
Not with the parents who could have space for that. They're with workers who have liability issues.
Right, exactly.
And they can't let a kid do that to each other because of like legal and litigious issues, right?
Or just they're uncomfortable and they're not as invested in your children learning life lessons as you would be invested. That's right, exactly. And so, there's all sorts of reasons. But we've now become sort of people who feel like government entities should be doing that for us, is running in and making sure that we're not making poor choices or whatever, and like disrupting that. And I think in that case, then you can start to go, well, but it's unethical to let people make decisions that are not in their best interest or whatever, because it's mean, or and if you try to talk somebody into something, or if you are a persuasive marketer and somebody makes a choice that they have buyer's remorse the next day for whatever reason, then you were unethical in being persuasive, right? Like you did something to them. But to your point, that's actually the currency of all interpersonal dynamics.
Yeah.
We are always trying to persuade each other. So to go back to that question of like, and is it more ethical if it's just straight data? And we've kind of got that sense. I would say that when you do things with just straight data, actually, I mean, as a person who has attempted to do this on a number of occasions, and again, universe's handprint on my face, you learn really quick how allergic people are to choices that are purely in the thinking realm, actually. Mm-hmm. That they need, that they don't care how much you think until they know how much you care, or something like that. I can't remember what the axiom is, but it's like if you try to do things just entirely thinking, people will think you're a monster. They will, because the purely thinking choice almost always doesn't take people's feelings into account. It just doesn't care. It's like, here's the smart play. Here's the smart thing. This is how you actually solve the problem. Here's how you solve the problem sustainably. And so, as a person who has attempted to be in that channel before, I know just how much pushback and how much of, like projection onto you that you are an unfeeling, uncaring, compassionless, empathyless person. And how dare you, right? How dare you become, you're such a monster.
Fair enough. I mean, I've seen it happen. We work with this all the time. I've seen thinkers have to deal with this. Yes, yeah. I agree with you.
So I think at the end of the day, and this is probably just reinforcing the concept, I think two things. First of all, I think there's a little bit of validation that each side can feel when they go, I'm allowed to, like, feelers are allowed to work in the realm of emotional currency and persuasion, emotional persuasion. Like, they're allowed to do that. And by the way, anybody who is listening to this podcast, if you go, well, I'm a feeler and I would never do that. Anytime you try to make somebody feel bad or ashamed for an action they took that you think was the wrong action, this is what you're doing. You are emotionally, quote unquote, persuading, but I would even say manipulating another person into behavior change. Yeah. Like you're using the currency of emotions to make somebody feel bad so they make a change. That's what we're talking about. It doesn't have to be positive, happy feelings to buy something you didn't want to buy. It can be blame and shame and like sort of getting somebody to a place where they feel terrible because you think their action was not the right action. That happens all the time. And I don't know any feeler who does not like live in that currency. So you can have all sorts of like, you can look down your nose at marketing, but you're absolutely doing it in all these other channels. And is that wrong? Not necessarily. People need to be shamed into proper behavior if they're doing these terrible things to each other, right? So there is a case to be made for emotional persuasion and even manipulation. So what's the ultimate arbiter? If the result works, or if the result is the result we're looking for. So you have to define your result. And if the result is that we all live in kumbaya, that's one result. Another result could be that we're working in a realm of market and currency, and people get to make a living now, and businesses get to survive, and people get to be employed by these businesses, and people get to put food on their table. Like, it's a different channel, but it's one that also, like there are reasons why people are persuasive in marketing and try to get people to make impulse buys, etc. You want it to be a win-win, but you also can't coddle somebody into making the right decision, I guess, unless you're Europe. But so there's arguments to be made for both sides. And really what it actually comes down to is we need to have both the thinking and the feeling realms. We need to have them partnered in the decisions that we're making. And how we are encouraging other people to choose. Like, we can't just have one side or the other. It's actually the balance of the two that helps us make the best choices for ourselves. If we are like emotionally manipulated into a product that we actually like is just going to sit on like in a package in a room, nobody won there. Right? Like, the business might have won temporarily for a small amount of time, but you didn't love the product. You didn't talk it up. You didn't encourage other people to go purchase it. It's not sustainable.
Didn't complete a cycle.
You did not complete the cycle. Exactly. And so it's whatever, right? It's not a great situation, right? It's kind of a lose-lose.
Well, it's one-dimensional value exchange, because you could have had more exchange of value after purchase by engaging with the product, putting it to use, whatever that might be.
Right. Whereas on the other side, if you're making entirely thinking-based decisions, and you can even keep it in the realm of purchases, and it's like, I needed it, it's the right thing for me, or not right the thing for me, it's the right thing for the context, it solves a problem, but I actually don't want it or like it, like maybe like an outfit. Right. It's like, it's warm for winter and, you know, it does it, blah, blah, blah. And like, there's all these things about it that like on paper check off boxes, but I kind of hate how it looks on me. It makes me feel really awful. Right. Well, guess what? You're not going to wear it. like no matter how much on paper it was like the right thing, you're just going to find yourself never wearing that thing because you don't like how it makes you feel. Right. And that's so the both things need to be there criteria wise. And I would take the example of purchases and I would spread it to like literally every area of life. We need to be bringing both the emotional component and understanding how it makes us and the people in our lives feel. And we need to make sure that it makes a resource and logic sense, no matter what it is. And of course, based on personality type preferences, we're going to weigh that on the side of, our preference. Like it is smarter for me to make thought-based decisions. That is just smarter for me to do. If I make emotional decisions, it almost always doesn't work out. But if I make it more of an introverted thinking set of criteria, but then also my extroverted feeling gets to be in there a little bit and it's happy and it also feels good that it's criteria is met, then it's a sound decision. And I would say probably the same for you. If your introverted feeling is, co-signing on this and going, this is the right choice and this is the right call, and also your extroverted thinking criteria is satisfied, then it's the right decision for you. So, I don't think, regardless of whether or not we believe one side of the aisle or the other one is more likely to behave in an ethical or unethical way, the truth is that the only real choice to make is one that partners both sides.
I agree with that. I'm going to make a hyperbolic kind of joke here. That's not actually true, but basically it's what I'm getting out of this conversation is that feeling is so powerful and so persuasive and it works so well that the world was like, oh crap, we need to handicap this quick.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we limit its reach and we put these other protections and provisions in to limit just how much power this actually holds. I mean, that's a flattering, it's sort of a joke, but also it's sort of like a flattering perspective in that, the reason the Europeans, the main, this is what my perspective is Europeans, and Europeans, if you're listening or watching, you can chime in here. Americans optimize for progress. And building something, but Europeans optimize for comfort and lifestyle, but also like homeostasis.
Interesting.
I don't want to be ruffled. And when we're over there, that seems to be like in Spain, they take naps all afternoon. Like everybody's like, the energy was like, we can get excited, we can engage all this, but I don't want to get out of my homeostasis. I don't want to be ruffled too much or down or up. I want to kind of stay regulated in this zone. And so I think the laws from Europe seem to be to keep that equilibrium going at all times.
Yeah, that makes
It's trying to keep all the laws always, from my perspective as an American. Now I could be completely wrong. This is my perspective. This is my opinion. I'm not saying this is reality, but it feels like the laws of Europe are always trying to equalize and keep things in an equilibrium.
Yeah. So
they don't get too spiked out here or over here. And they're trying to balance and
nothing's too outsized in any direction.
When we were in Copenhagen, everybody by Friday at 4:00, it's like they're done for the weekend. They go home and it's under the guise of lifestyle. No, we're not like workaholics like you Americans. We have lifestyle here. And I'm like, okay, that's a legit thinking criteria for an emotional decision as far as I see it. And the emotional decision is I don't like to be spiked. I want to stay in homeostasis as much as possible.
Yeah.
So I see the 14-day cooling off period law that's coming out to keep that going, because emotions can stimulate and excite and motivate and move. And it's like, I got spiked. I took an action. Whoa, I got to bring it down. They literally call it a cooling off period.
Yeah.
To bring it back to homeostasis and calm temperature setting at, I was going to say 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but whatever it would be, 68 degrees.
30 something, right?
68 or 21 maybe Celsius, something like that.
Something.
I'm trying to do the math in my head. But that's an example of kind of the emotions are so powerful that this kind of is the counterweight to it. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, without those counterweight, this is an argument for the other side, without that counterweight, well, man, the feelers would run the world in a way, because we could just persuade and whip everyone to a frenzy. It's almost like the thinking energy of the world we got to put some counterweight bunkers against this power that the the feeling could bring to the world, like the pure manipulative populist kind of energy.
Yeah.
We got to tamp that down and keep it nice and equalized.
Well, of course, feeling is incredibly powerful. It's more ancient.
Sure.
Right? It's like, it's closer to
seed of motivation, honestly.
It's closer to our brainstem,
Yeah.
right? Like if you think about us as like a long lineage of animals, like feelings evolved way before logic and neocortex stuff. So of course it's incredibly powerful. And I don't know if like, I think your characterization of like the thinkers being like, we got to put a cap on this, otherwise it's too, I mean, like that's a little too,
I know that's hyperbolic, like kind of a joke, but
well, it's creating caricatures.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like an archetypal way of looking at it.
I know it's inaccurate by
Yeah.
definition, but it's a fun thought experiment to kind of
Yeah.
almost cartoonize it to see the
Yeah.
energies at play. I know it's not real.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just,
But
all of this is done in that spirit.
For sure. And I mean, I think feeling and feelers are incredibly powerful for sure. And I think one of the reasons why you might even, actually, I was going to say this a little earlier, but I'm sure we can wrap up here in just a moment, is the challenge with feeling and whether or not it gets accused of being unethical is that there are no clean lines. In the thinking realm, thinking is an attempt to create clean lines around everything. Like you're trying to create clean definitions. You're
Yes.
trying to create clean metrics. You're
Clean
trying
agreements.
Right.
Not tacit agreements, but like
Stated.
interoperable stated agreements.
That's right. Things are written down. Things are like the whole point is clarity, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to make it as clear as possible with as many definitions and,
Understandings.
And clean slicing and all of that stuff. That's the point of thinking. So when it goes off the rails, it's pretty easy to point to. For feeling, it's the opposite. It's like it's energies and vibes that are moving through things, and there's no clean definitions, and it's murky, and it's hard to express and explain through language, right? It's like hard to sync up with other people's definitions around things. It's more of like felt and embodied and experienced and attuned to, and a lot of the stuff that's happening is, I mean, it's almost like magic, right? It's like it's a rapport and energy passing between people and energies coming up from within. And so when it goes off, it's hard to point to exactly what's happening. And so then it kind of just gets this sense of, something that's, I mean, persuasion is an example of something that is unseen but still there, right? Like it's how exactly did they do that? How did that ad work? What is even happening in that ad that you talked about at the very beginning? It's like, why do I want to click on it? Why am I curious about this thing? It didn't actually say anything. And it's like that, but that's how it works. And so calling it unethical is interesting because really how would you decide that? How would you be able to determine that? And it's like you have to look at the whole system running, the players, the intentions, the receivers, where they're at, all of that. And so when it might be that it's more suspicion than anything. Like the feeling components create some suspicion around it because it's like, what is that person up to? And if you have cloaked intent or whatever, I could see why a person would project that onto it. And how thinking might feel, quote unquote, more pure because it's just more
in the open.
It's more, transparent.
It feels more it's in the open.
It feels like it's more manageable and more, it's like, closer to math. Yeah.
So what's coming up for you? You've been listening along. We've been having this conversation. I've asked you a couple times throughout the conversation to report how you're experiencing it as these thoughts develop. It's just two of us here. Your voice would be really important to this conversation because I think you could give your perspective and start to create more angles to see this from. I don't think we have the full picture here. We're just kind of positing this, and we'd love to hear what's coming up for you. Question, comments. If you could share a story, situations and stories are really powerful. I'm a feeler, so of course I'm going to say that because you get all that murky and the decisions and the nuance of it, right?
Joel wants the murk.
It's not just stated facts, but like the experience of it shows how this actually plays out on a real human.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these things we talk about are like theory, and then when you see a real human play it out, it's like a very different thing.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear from you what is coming up for you in this conversation. And I think, again, I would just point to that bulletproof thinking that you mentioned earlier. If you do want to refine your thinking, we have this masterclass or workshop, one of the two, I can't remember what we called it. It's on our website. It's not easy, but it's really good. It's really good. If you're willing to sit down for a couple hours, that's all it takes to walk through Antonia's like system of taking a thought and questioning the premises, strengthening it, trying to find the alternative to that thought, and then strengthening the other side to then strengthen your side, and then testing your assumptions there. And it's like you keep going. Man, it's exhausting for me because it's not how my brain normally works. And I just realized how much energy is burned in the thinking process for people that use introverted thinking. But I would say even introverted thinking people have got a lot of benefit from this. And it really helps me understand just how I'm not good at this function. And so then I'm more careful with my thoughts. I was like, oh, okay, I see what work goes into thinking properly about this. I'm not putting that work in. So I bet I've got a lot of assumptions here. I bet I've got a lot of premises that I'm just operating from. And so it really was a good mirror back to just see my own thinking reflected.
Yeah. Yes, everybody rush out and get a product that will reflect back to you that your thinking isn't as refined as you think it is. And it's going to be a lot of work to get there. But
it shows you how to refine it. I think that's what I like about it. It doesn't just say, hey, your thinking's off. It goes, actually, we don't know if your thinking's off or not. Start following this process and you're going to report whether your thinking's off or not. And it's not telling you how to, like what to think. It just shows you the mechanisms of testing. So literally it could work for any thought, any ideology, any premise. It doesn't matter. It's like agnostic. It's just a great tool for refining your beliefs and your thoughts and your persuasions and how you would say something. I mean, it's really a good tool.
Well, and I mean, I don't think it's grueling. I actually think it's fun.
I'm sure you would say that.
But it's a process that it was, when I talk about rewiring my brain and putting my brain back together after leaving a cult, this is the process that I went through.
FJs would love this, by the way.
Actually, I think FJs really like it.
This because they already have a part of them that wants this more.
Yeah.
And it really helps them sharpen that introverted thinking.
But I think TPs benefit a lot, for sure. And I think TJs as well. I think it's the FPs that usually don't like it.
It's really hard. We're just like, why am I doing this again?
Why am I doing this? This is hard. Why am I doing this?
I hate every moment of this. I'd rather crawl across broken glass, but whatever.
But if you're an FP that's like, I'm great at introverted thinking, why do you keep saying you're not?
This will disabuse you of that quick.
Or you can test your mettle and see if you're right.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this blessing up.
Okay.
My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker Podcast.